Hello and good morning. How's everyone doing today? We are going to be getting joined here in just a moment by Parker Kump, our CEO, and I'm going to be your host today. Brywin, if this is your first time here, I'm our CMO, so I oversee service delivery. So I like to step in and get involved with these workshops. Jordan West is currently traveling, so you will be hosted by myself and Parker here very shortly. I welcome anybody who is joining us with the chat functionality to hop in the chat, let us know where you are calling in from. I like to say that even though I know you're not technically calling in. Maggie, hello. How are you today? I will also welcome everyone to use the chat functionality to ask any questions that you have throughout the presentation. We will answer questions throughout, as well as save some time towards the end for Graham Maggie for proper question and answer period. So please feel free to use the chat functionality. Parker will be joining us shortly and will be moderating the chat. But we'll give everyone just another minute here to join us, and then I will share my screen and go through the presentation. We're covering a super exciting topic today, which is similar vein to last time, all about creators, how to keep them engaged, and really build out that creator kit, which is so important for getting the most out of TikTok Shop. So we'll give everyone just a minute here as I share my screen. Alrighty. So anybody else in the chat, please let me know where you're tuning in from. Love to hear from you. So we'll dive straight into it. Really what today boils down to is building that strong, robust creator ecosystem where not only are you attracting creators, but you're keeping them engaged, making sure that they, throughout the duration of their working time with you, are excited to work with you and that you get the most from that relationship, from better content to more content and everything in between. So today we are getting a little bit back to basics here, but it is one of our most requested topics is covering the creator ecosystem. From that first message to keeping them engaged, and ultimately the funnest part that we will get to, and something that I personally think is the funnest part, is going to be the creator briefs. Oh, and we have Parker joining us. Parker, welcome. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm a little late.
No, you're good. You're good. We're just getting started here. Parker, if you can keep an eye on the chat and any questions that come through, I would be most grateful. So, hi, do we get the recording after as well? So you should be able to access post. Perfect. So building your creator kit. So there are three main components that go into what we consider our creator kit. And again, this is the exact same framework that we use at SCC for our clients and the brands that we work with. What this really breaks down to is these three core components that are going to make your campaigns and ultimately your creator relationships run a lot smoother, a lot easier, and really make it an engaging process that the creators want to be involved in. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, whether you are an agency, you're working across multiple brands, or if you're on TikTok Shop working internally for a brand yourself, is you're going to want a spot where the creators are able to go to and see all of the information that they need. The point here is reducing friction and making it just as easy as possible for them to get all of the insight that they need, all of the information, without them having to bog down your community managers and ask the questions over and over again. So our preference is actually using Notion. And this is just because it is very simple, easy to use, easy to share, and you're able to have control over the visuals itself and the content that is there. Again, ease of use is key to this. So this is just our centralized destination that we send creators to, so we don't have to answer one-to-one messages repeatedly. The second component of this in building out your kit is have your creator messaging prepped and ready. If you are a member of a brand team and there's several steps of approvals that you have to go through internally, have this all approved ahead of time. Delays in communication with creators are going to cause angst as well as a slowdown of momentum. So very important there. The third component, and I mentioned this in the beginning, is the part that I get the most excited about, is the briefs. It is what you provide to the creator to set them up for success and make sure that ultimately they're able to do their job and sell to the end consumer. They have everything that they need. And it also makes sure that you have some guardrails on the content that you're actually getting back. You're already paying the money for the samples to go out there. You're paying the commissions. You don't want any single cent of that to be wasted. So friction and confusion. This is the content killer. So this is what I was talking about specifically with the hub that you use where you provide the information. It can be very easy to want to add a little bit too much marketing to the speak that you use in the information that you pass on to your creators. It is important that you get them hyped up, that you excite them, but you also make it incredibly clear what the expectations are and the information that they need to know. If there is friction, if it is too much work for them to get that information, or it is confusing and they're not really sure what they're supposed to do or when, it is going to impact your content. That is when you're going to start getting a lot more of those videos posted where they're just saying, hey, look at this free sample I got, go check it out. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So this is just a very, very clear version of what we use internally for our brands. You can make it as visually impactful as you like, but clean, simple, and branded is important. So you can see here that there's a couple of things. We do have some information as far as like, hey, welcome to the community. We want to make sure that we're speaking to these people as people. We want them to want to work with us. So that is something that you'll see that is very prevalent throughout this presentation and the information that we provide. But it comes down to sort of four main things. The campaign overview. This is going to provide that brand context, the campaign goals, and any key dates at a glance. Similar to your internal teams and how you speak to whether it's your vendors, your contractors, your employees, dates are important. They need to know at what time they need to post, what time things go live, and any additional sort of key constraints that they need to be aware of from that perspective. The second is going to be the do's and don'ts and talking points. Extremely important, especially if you're in a vertical that has very specific claims. You want to make sure that you're very upfront and clear about what they can say, what they can't say, and anything that you need to see in that content. So this is, again, very important if you're in a claim-specific industry, supplements, beauty products, etc. You want to make sure that you don't have to approve every single piece of content before it goes live. That is just not the ecosystem that TikTok Shop really is at that point in time. The third thing is briefs, hooks, and angles. We don't want to stifle creativity here, but we do want to provide some guardrails so that creators are able to do what they do best and really lean into their creative side while also playing off what works for your brand. So if there's any creative direction that you want to see, this is the time to provide it. Provide them examples. You don't want to provide a script because that is just going to get you the same video over and over and over again, but you want to have guardrails and direction. Fourth, it's the least sexy part, but it's so incredibly important, the logistics and instructions. So if there's any additional details, so whether it is incentives and contests that you're running, deadlines, the tagging rules, the PID instructions, and how-to guidance, remember that you're going to have creators that are absolute pros. They've done this before. You don't need to really explain it to them, but then you're also going to have creators that maybe they're new to this. They're still going to create great content, but they need a little bit of helping hand as far as like the actual setup is concerned. Remember, the more information that you put in this, especially if it's like frequently asked questions that your community managers often get, this can help make sure that you don't have those happening on the back end, that it isn't slowing down while also saving your team some precious time.
Brian, there's a couple questions around like the timing. So Rob sorry, is it Maggie? They're asking about this creator hub. Is it do you gatekeep this or provide this information when the sample request is going in, or this is to join the community? Like, what is the timing for sample request and approval, and then getting them these kind of like rules, incentive programs, break down the creator hub? Like, what's the timing look like?
Oh, great question. So you're going to want to have this set up prior to or at the same time that you're sending out samples. So you may not have it in your first message saying, hey, we want to work with you, go request a sample, what have you, depending on the level of outreach and whether it's, you're going one-to-one versus, just broad speaking outreach. And we'll get a little bit more into that messaging details there. You want to have this prepared out the gate. You want every single creator, regardless of when they're coming in through your campaign duration, to have the same experience and have what they need to succeed. If you don't do this out the gate, you are going to be reactive, you are going to be playing catch up, and it is going to be slower and more manual for you. So to answer your question, as soon as they have a sample, you're going to want to say, hey, join our community. Hey, here's some resources for you. You want that to be readily available. While we want all creators you work with to ultimately end up in your creator community that you're building, not everyone is going to. So you just want to make sure that this information is available to all creators, regardless of where they're at, whether inside or outside of your community.
So it's safe to like assume that you and the team are using this strictly as recruitment tools when getting new creators into the community, less in regards to sampling. Usually sampling leads to then recruiting into a community, but this is primarily for recruitment of new creators that we vetted or went and verified that they would be a good fit for X brand's community.
Yes, and like you are able to, and what I would recommend is providing this link in your outreach messaging as well. So that way they can see, hey, we're going to be supported. At the end of the day, our job and your job as a brand is to sell to creators. You don't want to be the only brand that's going to them that doesn't feel like you're supporting them through the entire journey. So this is just something that creators are going to want to pay attention to. So it is a little bit from like a recruiting standpoint is where you're going to be able to get the most value out of it, but it still has value at the start of the relationship as well, which really kicks off with that outreach.
Sweet. Awesome. And then Rob, I see you have questions about briefs, but Brian's got a couple great slides on briefs that would probably answer.
We'll get into the briefs. Don't you worry. You'll also see here, and something that is worth mentioning, is we do have a section for creative briefs. When you first initially get started on TikTok Shop or its early days, you might only have one brief if you're really only pushing one specific product. However, if you do have several products that you are pushing, you are going to want a different brief per product. If you have too much information on a single brief, it is going to be confusing, and confusion is going to add friction, which is going to be your content killer. So using the messaging to build the community, I'm going to break down the amount of messages that we actually send. But at the end of the day, the first thing that you need to decide is what is going to be your vehicle of speaking to your community. We talk about different outreach tools. Our preference is obviously Reacher. For getting that initial conversation started, getting the sample in their hands. And then we really want to move them into a place where we're able to have one-to-many as well as one-to-one discussions. Our preference and what we use internally is WhatsApp, but there are plenty of brands out there that use Discord. Ultimately, it's going to be dependent on what your goals are, your team structure, and what you find works best for you. But with WhatsApp, we do find, and I will push this as being our preference purely because it is already something most creators use for speaking to their friends, their family. They don't have to download something new. They don't need to sign up to something. They don't need to log in, go through an app. It just makes it a lot easier for them. And the difference between like the one-to-many versus the one-to-one is important. The one-to-many is going to be obviously for your welcome messaging, your blitz and campaign pushes, the engagement touch points. If you're trying to give them some coaching, give them examples of what's working, let them know broadly speaking what is happening, you're able to have that in a group setting, which is going to make them feel very connected, like they're part of a community. You also have the opportunity, if they're asking questions, you might have some creators in your creator community that actually jump in, want to answer the questions, and sort of lend their 2 cents as well, which again just fosters that sort of unity that is very, very important for TikTok Shop. The one-to-one is going to come in a lot more handy if you have a creator who is doing a superb job and you want to offer them specific commissions and specific prizes just for them and incentivize them a little bit differently. So you just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to do both. So at the end of the day, and to sort of summarize this piece, done well, community messaging and the way that you really structure it turns from a transactional relationship into an ongoing engaged partnership. That's what we want. And I'll just do a little bit callback to prior workshops that we have done. Reason for this is TikTok Shop really only requires one post per sample. That is not enough. That's very difficult to get your money's worth from that one piece of content. We want to create an ecosystem and an environment where creators want to make 3 to 5 posts per sample, where they are encouraged and we have a vehicle in order to make that happen. So this really allows us to do that. Parker, you look like you wanted to jump in and say something.
No, I was just about to add to that, like the ratio of videos to samples is something to get really fixated on. I just came from a conference and that was a very repeated question and pain point. And is when you're just mass sampling, and it's surprising how many brands don't even have their own creator community, but a massive problem was actually like a zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8 to sample, and that ratio just being a huge struggle for them. And so this is one of the not easiest, but this is the main lever to pull is one, hunt them into your own creator community and have guardrails and standards that if you're going to give them excessive rewards or extra rewards for being in that community, you expect this. And having that guardrails, it was like I probably talked to over 50 brands, and I would almost say 50% of them, that question came up.
100%, and something that we get asked fairly frequently, and obviously we have our own creator community, but for a lot of brands that come to these workshops, we get asked, is it worth it creating this community? Or is that a nice to have versus a need to have? In our opinion, and from what we've seen, it is absolutely a need to have. Every single creator community for every single brand starts somewhere. It is better to have those 5 people in there and grow it from there. You have to start somewhere. You're not going to have 1,000 creators overnight. That's not the expectation, but it's building that trust, building that loyalty, especially because a lot of creators, even if they're not big GMV drivers yet, they haven't had their viral moment, what have you. If they get started with a brand who may or may not be new, that brand invests in them, takes the time, makes them feel like they're part of something, they are going to be loyal. So that way, when they actually have their big moment for that brand, they're driving substantial results. They 100% can get messages from competitors and saying, hey, we want to work with you. And the sense of brand loyalty is going to keep them engaged with your brand, with your community. So that way they are going to actually want to take that time, not worry about the opportunity cost, and make more content for you. So getting the message right, this is something that we are very, very, very disciplined in as far as how many messages to send. A lot of brands will probably look at the volume of messages that we send and think it's a lot. A lot of brands will sort of default to the initial outreach, maybe a follow-up, and then maybe a follow-up again once they have their sample and they're just pushing for a post to happen and that content to start really going out into the ecosystem. We do a little bit more than that, to say the least. So it really starts with that initial outreach. So that first impression, we've talked about this in the past, but clear, compelling, on brand, give the creator a reason why they should work with you. Whether that is, you're offering higher commissions, if it is incentives that you're doing, if you have an exciting campaign coming up, starting to have that like FOMO generation early in the beginning, get their brain turning. Why should they want to work with you? Get them hook, line, and sinker on that front. Once they're there, immediately, as soon as that sample ships, invite them to the community. 100% before they get their sample is when we want to start that connection with them and make sure that they have what they need to be successful from a content perspective, as well as, getting them excited. Especially if you're planning your own blitz, there's a lot of lead up to it. You don't want early posts. You want people feeling supported, posting on time. So we want to make sure that we have that community tie-in very, very soon, and that we follow up on that. We do several follow-ups with them to get them into the creator community, especially if they're a high priority like VIP or someone that we believe is going to make good content. We want to have that one-to-one with them. The next is going to be if the sample is approved, once it's shipped, and once it's arrived. These creators are working with a lot of brands. On average, they're going to have a ton of DMs. They're going to get, I think we've all seen the videos of the people saying, oh, free sample haul. You don't want your sample going to the bottom of the bin. You want to make sure that they're excited. They know it's coming. They know when it's arrived. We also want them to know that we know. So that's very important for just managing the relationship. Parker, I can see you nodding. 100% we have to manage the relationship. This is not a passive channel, and we don't want to set the expectation that it should be. Next here is the content pending and reminders. Just friendly nudges. Hey, the post date is coming up. Hey, this needs to happen. It's not about bullying them into posting. I'm sure we've all worked with creators and influencers in the past where maybe we were a little bit too, hey, you need to do what you need to do, and they posted subpar content because of it. Again, gentle nudging, positive reinforcement. It's a great time to remind them of the contest that you're having, whether that is, again, we talked about this last time, whether it's a volume game, whether it's a GMV game, making sure that they know the brand, you guys are ponying up for incentives to really, really make sure that they have a great experience working with you. And that even if they're not generating sales and they're not getting a huge commission from that, they have an opportunity to earn elsewhere. Next thing is going to be just like the Spark code and collab requests. So this is something that's very important. Not all creators are going to have automatic Spark code turned on. You're not going to be able to automatically pull everything into your GMV Max campaign. It's important that you are collecting those as a backup and you're able to really make sure that the creators are engaged by having them fill out a form where they submit it and make sure that they understand why they should do that. I have here to sort of summarize this slide. Messaging isn't just outreach. It's the through line of the entire creator experience. And that is so true. This is something that we hear from our creator community frequently is they want to work with brands that clearly care, that speak to them like they're people. They don't want, and this is, I'm just going to be very honest, it to sound like it's coming from a robot or chat GPT. They want to have a sense of, oh, I know who I'm talking to. So this message here is the perfect example. I won't read it to you, but I will leave it on the screen for a second. But it is just really going above and beyond to make sure that they know, hey, we're excited to be here. We're excited to speak to you. And guess what? We've launched a community just for you and creators like you, and giving them all of the information that they need as to why they should join the creator community. So Rob, this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about earlier with the Creator Hub. This is an early on message that we would send and continue to send to make sure that they understand what's in it for them. The creator community, it makes it easier for the brand, but it also makes it easier for the creators.
What's Brian, what's a good reminder slash nudges kind of high level schedule? Like I guess initially to get that yes, how many messages are you sending and reminders, and then post post the sample for blitzes? Like, do you have a general cadence of how many or a general schedule that brand should follow?
Yeah, and there's going to be some fluctuation depending on how many creators are saying yes, what your actual conversion rate on those
Hmm.
messages is. Um, I like to do it every couple of days, specifically for that initial outreach. For the sample, I would just do a couple of check-ins depending on what your shipping time is. I want them to get at least, 1 to 2 messages saying, hey, it's almost there. Sign up, join our creator community to get the, information that you need to be successful, to participate in the contest, so on and so forth. You don't want to annoy people. So you want to make sure that the messages are kind and have value And by value, I mean remind them of the contest, remind them of the commission, remind them of the benefits of joining the creator community. Make sure that that is like abundantly clear. What it shouldn't be is, hey, your sample's almost there. Don't forget to post. Hey, your sample is there. Make sure you post.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that, again, if we're thinking about carrot versus stick, we want that positive reinforcement.
So like, would it be safe to again generalize to get the yes, like a one to max three or four kind of messages, and then to coordinate the blitz sample delivered. Hey, here's a reminder, and then right before the blitz or your moment, hey, here's a third reminder for them,
Yeah,
just to like make sure they're on track.
I think that's fair, and something also to remember. So if you're using Reacher, for instance, you're going to have certain outreach limitations and things of that nature. Why we want them in the creator community is you then don't have to worry about that. You're then able to, once they are there, you're able to share all of the information, have that board back and forth, have a community manager that is hyping them up, getting them excited, and constantly like sharing this information with them.
Gotcha, gotcha, awesome.
Perfect. I know we have a couple of questions coming through here.
Yeah, I was going to say for blitzes, do you have a specific time or date? Yeah, we do a specific time like window. So, hey, like 48 to 72 hours and dates. I wonder how granular you're looking for if you're asking for specific time. How granular do we get it with creators? Is it just a date window of 72 hours, or do we say like launching at 12 p.m. PST?
Yeah, so for some brands, we get very, very granular.
Yeah,
So it is going to depend if you're aligning your blitz with other moments that you are creating in your general ecosystem. So, for instance, if you have a specific product drop, for instance, that is dropping across your D2C, across your Amazon, what have you at a specific time, you're probably going to want to be very, very granular and very specific versus if it is, more, hey, evergreen. I'll use the example of like if you're a toothpaste brand or something of that nature, and you're launching during last month, February, which is like National Dental Hygiene Month, then perhaps your window is going to be a little less rigid in terms of start time. But you want to make sure that they are aware of when they should start posting and any ideal posting windows. So for instance, I think we can all remember back to early influencer marketing on Instagram. If you were doing a campaign like this, you would want the posting window to be within like the realm of people being awake when they're online, when their higher converting times are. So you can be very, very granular depending on your business goals. What we recommend is giving them a start time for when they can start posting and say, hey, this is when the contest runs. It'll run from, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 15th to, 3 or 4 days in the future, and give an end time. More so, not for the algorithm, but specifically for you. And when you actually look at the leaderboard and you want to be able to assign winners, you want to make sure that it's super clear what the cutoff is. So that way you're not dealing with then, disgruntled creators on the back end.
awesome, awesome. One last question, before, and then I'll let you keep going. There's a great question of like, how do we encourage engagement? I know a couple ways we've done is when we have a community manager for every community or creator community that their job is to be actively communicating. And I don't think you should leave it up to the creators to do all the communication. If you're pushing and being clear communication, they'll engage in it. Or one thing we've also done is had successful creators that we've then put on retainer to be coaches and then getting really engaged in the community. Hey guys, this is what's working for this brand. This is what I'm doing. Here's some winning hooks. If it's a creator, like you don't have to, if there's like a lead creator that's a coach for the broader community, a ton of engagement follows that. So having a community manager or a high VIP creator that you put on retainer to then coach the community and really facilitate that engagement. Those are a couple ways. But Brian, any other kind of ways that we've increased engagement for creators?
Yeah, so outside of, just like the messaging and giving them reasons to engage, something that we have seen work tremendously well is to give a face behind the brand. So once you have your creator community, highly recommend either the brand founder, whomever is running the program, host a meet and greet where, just a short Google Meet, whatever video platform you want to use, and you walk them through and say like, hey, this is the product, this is why we're launching it, these are some of the benefits, this is what we've seen work for like talking about it, answer some questions. Because then they have, a face behind the brand. They have somebody now that they can trust, and they're going to have built some of that rapport with you. And that's going to then translate into the creator community. It's also going to make them feel like they can ask questions, which oftentimes that's where engagement starts. Some creators, especially if, maybe they're not generating a ton of GMV yet, might not feel like their voice matters when it very much does. So making sure that you're speaking to all of your creators, not just a specific group, very important. And what that can look like early days, just as another example, is if there's a piece of content that maybe it's not driving GMV yet, ideally it is, because then it's a little bit easier to pull out, hey, this is what's working and why. You can look at, well, what videos are getting the highest click-through rate? What is the most on-brand piece of content that you've seen? Share that, call the creator out in a positive way and say like, hey guys, look what at Sarah underscore 21 created. We love this piece of content and here's why. Or like, oh, hey, here's our up and comers. Like, make them feel good even if they're not necessarily top of your leaderboard, because that's what's going to get them championing each other, giving each other pats on the back. And exactly to Parker's point, once you have, your creators that are really, rising to the top, engage them like personally and say, hey, we can either raise your commission or give you a flat rate. We want you to host some coaching sessions. We want you to be sort of like, we call them pod squads internally, but be a pod squad coach. And it just feels a little bit more real if that positive encouragement is coming from another creator than just the brand.
Yeah, I was talking to one brand owner and I love his take. He's like, the only incentives I do now, they used to be all cash, are things that people can take pictures of and post in the group. So it's either like he'll do a cash prize plus like a Yeti cooler that's $800 because it goes well with his creator community. And they take pictures and say like, oh my gosh, I won the contest, and they're sharing it. Or a really excessive one was a trip. Like instead of a cash prize, he gave a trip, and people were posting about the trip in the creator community. If it's physical, they can see it and they can post about it. I mean, cash, they could post a picture of a big wad of money, but that doesn't really excite people that much. Whereas it's like an object or a trip that they are like sharing the moment of. He saw it actually was the same amount of money he was giving away from cash and prices, but it encouraged the engagement through the roof, and so it was no additional cost to them. But yeah, they were sharing it a ton. And I thought that was a really really cool like little nugget. But anyways,
Yeah,
keep going
incentives that
on the
creators
train.
don't have to pay
Yeah,
taxes on later later date
yeah,
is a
exactly.
great way to think about it. Gift cards as well is something that a lot of creators enjoy getting over just cash prizes. You can also, if you want to keep it like in the brand, you can make them like a specialty swag box, for instance. If you are a clothing company and a creator is killing it for you, maybe you give them like a whole new capsule wardrobe, right? Or something like that. Something that like for you isn't a massive price tag, but for them is like oh wow, look at this. I'm not going to read these messages all the way through to you guys, so please feel free to take a screenshot. Highly encourage. But there's a couple of examples here. And again, you can see that we speak to these people in a way that is friendly. We like talking to them and it comes through in the messages. So there's a couple examples here. This one specifically is the target collab message, as well as the DM that will then send along with that as well. So you can see here in the target collab message itself, short, sweet, to the point, very high level, what's included, why they should join this. So obviously the free brand samples, even though a lot of brands are going to say, hey, well, that's a no-brainer. People love seeing the word free. Don't be afraid to use it, especially if it's a high value product. Creators are going to want to see that. The commission, make sure that is super abundantly clear. Don't be afraid to mention that there's going to be ad support behind top performing content. That is better for them. They're going to be seen more. They have more opportunities to earn. Early access to whatever the event is, in this case, stock up and save, but early access to the actual bundle links. They want exclusives. They want to feel special. They want to beat the rush. So make sure that you include that. In the DM itself, there's an expanded version of this that also includes information on the creator community. So we're kind of hitting it from two different fronts and making sure that they have all the information that they need. Next to this, the welcome to the community. This is very important. Again, we want to make sure that we get them there. We want to make sure that they get the value out of it. And we want to make sure they understand what they can expect. So this message here is specifically what they can expect. So I'll again take a screenshot. I won't read it to you, but it just really covers all of the core information, as well as providing the resource hub that we spoke about earlier. So that way they always have access to that.
There's a couple more questions, but I want you to get through briefs first, and then we'll regroup to these. They're
Yes,
really solid
we'll
questions
save
coming
some
through in the
time
chat.
at the end for the questions because I think I'm seeing a lot of them in the chat are quite related. So we'll just cover them all in one beat. So the role of the creator brief, I said this before, I'll just remind everyone, it is to make sure that we give them the information that they need to be set up for success, and also make sure that we, on the brand side, on the agency side, have done what we can to add in guardrails to make sure the content that is being posted is good content. This is twofold. As a brand, I want great content that I can use, but also from the creator's perspective, if they make a post or a few posts based off a bad brief and it doesn't get them anywhere, they're not going to want to continue creating. So we want to make sure that they're set up for success as well as we are. So I'm also going to show you a visual after this slide as well, but the core components of a strong brief. First, brand and product overview. Goes without saying, they need to know what they're talking about and what the brand is. Highly recommend, if you have a brand name that is difficult to say or could be pronounced incorrectly, include the phonetic pronunciation. It'll save you a lot of hassle in the long run. Second one is going to be the ingredients and feature call out. So if there's anything that you want them to be able to speak to about the product, if there's a specific ingredient that is required in order to actually say your claim, what have you, make sure that is super clear. Again, if there's going to be a word there, a particular ingredient, what have you, that is difficult to pronounce, make it easy, give the phonetic spelling for them, and you can also provide videos as well just to explain how to say it. The key talking points. Very important here that we give them certain talking points that we need to have included without making it so rigid that they're reading a script. So provide them a couple of different things that they can touch on. You can also provide examples in which that they can actually talk about those specific points, just so that way it's as clear and easy to understand as possible. And the messaging guardrails. If there is absolutely something that cannot be said, if there's a specific claim, words to avoid, etc., please make sure that it is in here. With TikTok Shop, most brands are not going to have the opportunity or should want to have the opportunity to approve content prior to it being posted. So you want to make sure that it's abundantly clear in the brief. If there's anything that they cannot say, whether that is going to get your brand in trouble or potentially get a violation for the creator, we want to make sure that we're protected on both fronts there. So make sure that's super abundantly clear. The next is just including some reviews and trust builders. Again, our job here is to sell to the creators. With this brief, we want to reinforce, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Here's some guardrails, but also you can trust this product. You should want to work with this product. People love this product. So it just adds that additional layer of credibility right before we want them to have it. This is basically what I just covered, but the anatomy of an SCC creative brief. Keep in mind, for confidentiality purposes, wasn't going to share a live brief with you guys, but just wanted to walk you through what it looks like. So at the top, you're going to want the brand, the product, the logo, and think about it. This is where you can have your marketing. So if there's a nice, headline that works well in ads, if there's a headline that works well to sell the product to consumers, feel free to add it in here. This is also something that you can do testing with as far as the layouts, the information that you provide, what brief you can provide that's going to get you the best output. This is the starting point. Visually, you're going to want to make sure that it is branded. It should be aesthetically pleasing. So make sure if you have branded colors, anything like that, that's really going to tie it together, be sure to include that. It just helps. The next section here is the educate and excite. So this is what we were talking about, including those key benefits, if there's any claims, things of that nature. This is the place to put it. And I really like phrasing this as educate and excite. You don't want this to sound like a list of things that they can't do, can't say, to the point where it feels like they're handcuffed. We want it to still be exciting for them. The third section, we like to provide at least 3 creative angles for them to try with examples. So this is the examples and direction because TikTok is a visual platform. We want to make sure that we treat it as such. So make sure that you have embedded thumbnails or just a screenshot, showing the overall look and feel of the video. You want to make sure that here you also have the hook, the angle, and a quick 1 or 2 lines about how they can actually make the video. So for instance, if this is a hair care product and you want to show the product in use, give them their tips and tricks and say, hey, this is how you apply, take a quick video doing XYZ. The goal here is not to provide scripts or to really handcuff them into only one creative direction, but give them enough that they're able to really make it their own. The last section here is going to be building trust and confidence. Again, very important that you have these reviews. We're selling to them. We want to make sure that they can trust us, that they can see that other people like this product, and they can also then, go through, read some of the reviews, and maybe pull out some buzzwords themselves and just spark their creativity that way. Big thing here is, again, you want to give them the blueprint. You want them to be able to add their own personality. This is their job. They're creators. They know how to create. We don't want to tell them exactly what to do because then you're going to get thousands of the same video just over and over and over again. And that's not going to help you get where you need to be, especially with what works in the GMV max and ads. So last thing here, and I touched on this a little bit on that first slide, but specifically for the information you provide to give them direction, the scroll stopping video ideas. So these are the concepts. These are a little bit more high level, we'll say, in terms of like, hey, this is the vibe that we're going for. What I would recommend if it's your first time on TikTok Shop, a couple of things. Do your research. If there's anything that's working off platform for you as far as UGC that you've been testing out, in particular, if you're running it on TikTok ads, not necessarily on Shop, lean into that. If you know there's something that works for the brand, lean into that, but also look at your competitors. Look at competitive products and see what is really resonating with people, what videos are working, are there any trends that you can capitalize on? Make sure that you've done your research. The hooks and angles, I think this is a little self-explanatory, but just to cover the bases, this is the opening line, the narrative frame that is going to really make people stop and watch the video. You want to capture them in that first 3 seconds because, again, this is a very short attention span platform. We've talked about that in the past. And then just leaving room for originality. I'll say it again. Do not provide them a script. Provide them direction. Authenticity is the entire point here. And then just bringing it all together. It is about the culmination of all 3 things working together. If you have information for your creators, but the messaging isn't on point, if the brief isn't on point, then you're going to basically have that 2-leg stool. It's about all 3 working together. And it might feel overkill in the beginning, but again, our goal is to be proactive, not reactive. You don't want to get 3 months into TikTok Shop and wish you had the foundation laid. Make sure that you take that time, prepare it ahead of time. You can always tweak it. As everything on TikTok Shop goes, it needs to be fluid. You can learn, you can update the information. It's just important that you have that foundation to build off of. So on that note, Parker, let's get into question and answer time.
Yeah. There's a couple of things. I'll go back to Rob. You had a question about briefs, which we quickly touched on, but I think we can give a little more information. So what like analytics and trends are we sharing? So I think for analytics, there's obviously the building trust and confidence section in the brief. That's where I would share a lot of analytics for the client of, hey, 10,000 5-star reviews. We've sold X amount of units. So that's for the creators. But then the creative strategy piece, which is then coaching the creators. Brian, how much data are you sharing with creators specifically when giving creative strategies? So like, hey guys, here's some examples of videos that are getting X hook rate or X conversion rate? Are we sharing that data with creators? I know it's obviously going back to the client, but what is the bridge of data sharing with the creators for coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you are going to want to share that data with the creators. You are going to want to break it down into layman's terms. Don't assume that you're speaking to, a room full of marketers who are going to understand the abbreviations and the acronyms. Make sure that you break it down and say like, hey, you guys are doing a great job. And I like tying everything to examples. So for this example, I'm going to tie it to, hey, there's this particular type of video that's working and there's only one person that's done that type of video, but it's crushing it. You can go into the creator community and say, hey, you guys are doing a fantastic job. This is what we're seeing really, really work, and here's why. And then you can give them the stats so that way they can see, like, oh, how does this compare to what I'm doing? So you can say, hey, this is obviously the lowest hanging fruit is GMV if it's driving it, but also, hey, this is the video, the hook that is working the most. Here's some additional variations to try based off of this. Hey, if anybody has any questions about how to improve their hook and hold rate, how to improve their click through rate, you're able to then tie that to the numbers, but make it snackable and easy to digest. So that way, instead of you spewing a bunch of letters at me that I might not understand, which means I'm not going to act on it, I can say, oh, I can see how that translates to my job and my real life.
Totally.
Okay, I can do this.
Totally. Travis, for your question of for video examples, if you're brand new, what we do then is just competitor, right? With Calidata and Fastmoss, you can go see competitors in the space that are driving significant GMV and their top performing videos. And we would just go grab those videos for the initial creative brief of, hey, this is a very similar industry, similar competitor. Here are some of their top videos that are working really well. These are the hook rates that are working really well for them. These are the creative angles. So just the best part of this channel is everything is visible through Fastmoss, Calidata, their API. So we just then prioritize competitor data for that. And then once your GMV is driving, that's when you can do a mixture of both competitor and what is your internal best performing videos.
The one other thing that I would
Yeah,
add
anything to add
to,
there?
yeah, the only thing I would add to that as well is if you have the capabilities to make the type of content that you want and you can test it in-house, you absolutely can.
Mm,
We do have several clients that early days TikTok shop for them. A lot of the content that was performing and that they were pulling into GMV Max was content they posted organically. So they were able to actually test that out themselves. And the creator, the person behind the brand, was able to test out a multitude of ideas that they could then get data off of to then lead this. So it's kind of a combination of that and competitive research. It's going to depend on your capabilities of a brand and what you have behind the scenes. But using Calidata, using Fastmoss is an excellent way to get started.
or organic or meta ads. Hey, these are top performing meta ads that are working. You could rip and duplicate those as well. So organic, meta ads, and competitors, you'll still have amazing briefs. Mike had a great question. If you're seeing the most converting content in bottom of funnel content, do you brief creators to post that, or do you incentivize against that? I saw that deal based on bottom of funnel heavy creators is something to avoid. So how do we incentivize against just bottom of funnel, like get this deal now to then and then there was also another question of like, what do you do in between blitz moments? So more, are we incentivizing just for blitzes and bottom of funnels and deals? And what happens with evergreen?
Great question. So the short answer is you do not want every single piece of content obviously saying, hey, get the double discount, get 50% off now, or whatever that might be. That's not going to have legs from a longevity standpoint. Realistically, the algorithm is going to love it. We see that all the time where that type of content is probably going to get served. How you can incentivize creators out of that is go back to your incentive structure. So, how can you incentivize for volume and variety and set it up like that? And then have that conversation with your creators saying, hey, you can include the discount on, two of your four videos or whatever that case might be, whatever your breakdown is. But you're able to actually have that communication with them, give them the angles, give them the hooks, and make sure that on the back end, your ad strategy is there to support that. So it really just comes down to that creator communication and that incentivization piece.
Awesome. Just answering through Calidata or Fastmoss, which yeah, you don't need both. How do you say which makes it? How do you say you would mix top funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel content percentage wise?
Oh,
That's a tough one.
that's a
Uh,
loaded question.
yeah.
Um, to be honest, I would honestly prioritize that top of funnel, specifically with your blitz if you're trying to get sorry, no, all good. It's a great question. Don't be sorry for it. Honestly, I would prioritize the top of funnel content because it's going to give you
Yeah.
that longevity. Especially organically, we know that TikTok, it does take like up to 2 weeks for that content to actually make it through the algorithm. So you want it to have the legs to stand on for long enough. If the content is going to be specifically around a short-term event or a campaign that is sales based, then obviously you are going to have a shorter window for that you can actually use that. So I would prioritize, at least 70 to 80% minimum of your content being top of funnel, because that's also then going to allow you to use that across your other channels, which is a massive selling feature of TikTok Shop and just a massive benefit of the content is you're then able to pull that through into your Meta, into your YouTube, etc., where it really does belong at the top of funnel. So it just gives you a lot more use from that content. And I have yet to see a single brand be excited about content that says, go buy this on sale. It's on sale now, as opposed to content that they can use, cross platform and for longer.
Just to expand on that, but it's gonna be echoing the exact same thing that Brian just said is, and it definitely depends on what the goal is. So for we have, I'll give like two avatars of businesses that we work with. There's some that is let's just drive GMV to really increase the visibility of our brand. And that's where they're really focusing on blitz moments, and it can tend to be very bottom funnel heavy. Where we then have unified clients where we're managing their social commerce, TikTok shop, and their Meta and Google ads. And those clients are wanting just pure evergreen push and to harness TikTok shop and get those assets to then move over to Meta. That client is really wanting to prioritize evergreen because if you have a TikTok exclusive offer and 90% of your content is just around, hey, click this and buy this, you can only get this on TikTok shop, you can't move that over to Meta then, right? Whereas if you're a business that's wanting to fuel your Meta ads and majority of your spend is over there, and that's what you're kind of using TikTok shop as a net neutral platform to increase brand awareness, but also gain creative assets, 90% should then be evergreen, top of funnel that you can use on both platforms. So it's the worst answer by saying it depends, but if you're one of those avatars, it will help you then kind of say which you should prioritize. Their top 10 of my competitors, best performing videos, or bottom.
Sorry, we're
It's
just
a good
checking out the
question. The
chat to
entire
see
top,
any other
yeah,
questions coming.
slow, slow reader. The entire top 10 of my competitor best performing videos are bottom of funnel. Do you then just look for the top of funnel videos that are performing? Also, my client's product is like 20% cheaper than the main competitor, and the product is very similar. You would avoid the comparison angle then? Question mark. Trying to understand the question exactly.
So I think you partially answered this with your previous answer, Parker. Micah, it sounds like, so specifically you're saying, hey, all of the competitors are all bottom of funnel. That's what's working. I would honestly go back and like evaluate how you are, you know, assigning the value of, hey, is it working? Depending on which tool that you're using. Are you only looking at GMV? Are you looking at, more top of funnel metrics, as well as, how long they've been on the platform? There's going to be a lot of brands that are household names that they don't need to do nearly as much top of funnel awareness, top of funnel driving, because people just know the product. So they're using TikTok Shop as being that last little conversion lever. They're assuming that, the 17 touch points leading up to that sale have happened across a multitude of other channels. So they don't need to prioritize that as much versus if you are new to TikTok Shop, it's a cold start brand, you're new to the platform, that top of funnel is what's going to get people through that awareness and consideration phase faster. So it just depends on your brand versus where they are. I hate using the phrase, it depends. But it is going to depend a little bit use by use case basis, if that makes sense.
And I think the other part of your question of like, would you avoid comparison angles? Well, if there's a huge competitor in the space and they're just a little bit more expensive, but you have a clear differentiator, you can still do comparison, but then really harness that differentiator. It actually really helps with kind of the topic here of creator outreach. If you're trying to break into the channel and saying, hey, creators, come work with me. I'm like this brand that's doing really well on TikTok Shop, but we have this differentiator. That shows them that there's proof of concept in your market, and that actually helps with creator buy-in. So I would actually leverage that comparison of, oh yeah, we're like them, but we're this much better and we do this differently. And then that can justify the pricing. And so I don't think just because somebody has a different price point, you should avoid comparison. I would almost harness that and be like, oh yeah, we're just like them, but we do this better, and that's why we're a little bit more expensive. You don't even have to mention the expensive part, but if you just harness the differentiator or really compare the differentiator, that will help with sales. And honestly, more importantly, it'll actually really help with net new creator outreach.
Fantastic. I know we're coming at the end of time here. I think we have time for one more question if it comes through here in the next couple of seconds.
Any considered creator strategies we should look at during this season? Any considered creator strategies we should look at during this FIFA season?
I'm Hassan. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. I understand the FIFA part. But any
Takes us
considered
a
creative
little bit.
strategies we should look for? If you're able to expand here, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be a bit general. Like one strategy that I guess creator strategy for an incentive model that we've been playing around with that's been really working is the volume with time horizons, right? Before we were just incentivizing creators like, hey, whoever posts the most amount of videos is the leaderboard. Now we're saying whoever posts the most amount in this time frame and with this caveat has been really successful. So having like almost a double layer of like quantity, but with this time frame or these windows really helps rather than general, hey, over the month long push, we're going to be incentivizing all this. Yeah, we'll make sure that we'll send out, I'll follow up with support to make sure that the incentive playbook gets sent out, Travis. Awesome. Yeah, we'll go back to that session and resend it to everybody that attended.
Yes.
Awesome. I think that's a
Awesome.
wrap.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate everyone tuning in and the participation. Hopefully, this was helpful. It's certainly one of those foundational must-haves, not nice-to-haves, especially if you ask us. That'll just be the messaging we have for that. So thank you so much, and
Oh yeah.
everyone enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Awesome. Thanks everybody.